Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's brand new show. We're changing the name, changing the topic of the show. The show is now called the "What's Making Money Now" show, and I am your host, Dr. DoDeals, and today I have my great guest with me, Jon Soucy. Jon, say hi to everybody real quick.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone this morning? Hope you're doing well.
Yep. And this show is about how ordinary people are making extraordinary income in today's economy, in today's market. So I'm really excited to be here with you. For those of you who are watching this on Ustream or anywhere else, make sure you watch it on our Facebook page, which just go to drdodeals.com, DRDODEALS.com, and they'll take you to our Facebook fan page for this Ustream show. And right underneath the video, there's also a chat box that you can participate in as well, and say hi to Jon and everybody. And as we go through, if you have any questions for me or Jon, feel free to put it in the chat box, and we'll answer those questions for you. All right. Okay. Well, let's get started, Jon. With why don't you share with everybody a little bit about yourself, your family, and what is it that you do?
All right. I have been living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area now since late 2005. Moved here from Chicago, where I was born and raised, and started in Chicago doing real estate. Kind of went to my first seminar, got excited, went out and made a bunch of deals, and didn't get anything accepted. Kind of tinkered around for a long time. Made a lot of offers, didn't really know exactly what I was doing, but I figured, hey, at least I was out there doing something. And it wasn't really until my wife, Lisa, and I had moved down to Dallas-Fort Worth area late 2005 and really started getting serious, kind of resettled our lives. And wasn't until about 2007 when I finally, was getting into short sales at the time, and I went to a couple more seminars and was learning a little bit more on that end. That's really when short sale was kind of up and coming.
Right.
It was becoming more mainstream, I guess you could say, and so I wanted to learn more about it. I figured it was something I could do myself, and did some more education, and finally got out there and started doing it. And so in 2007, I had started getting out there and doing some marketing. Tim, you had one of your former websites was hotbargainproperties.com, and I was a member of that. And one of the lists that you had available on there was the post-bankruptcy list. And so I was marketing to that list, just sending yellow letters to people on that list, and just basically saying, hey, my wife and I'd be interested in buying your house. And the response rate was amazing. People, if you don't know, post-bankruptcy is people getting kicked out of bankruptcy. So it's people that were in trouble and put themselves out of trouble for a little while, delayed it by filing bankruptcy, and the inevitable came back, and they then after the 45 or 90 days, they're in trouble again. So at that point, they getting kicked out of bankruptcy because they weren't making their payments, and they're right back where they started. And so that's when I contacted them and said, well, hey, let's see if we can do a short sale, and I'll buy the house from you, discounted off of what's owed, and started getting successful in that, and bought a couple houses, and a couple others weren't as successful, but in the end, I was really getting bogged down. Doing short sales all by yourself was a lot of work. It's a lot of follow-up, a lot of time on the phone. And I started getting more interested in wholesaling. And so that's really kind of when I started there, is because when I was getting bogged down doing all the short sales, being on the phone all the time, I realized that my marketing had stopped and my phone stopped ringing. And so I didn't have any leads in the pipeline. Once I got done with one short sale,
right,
I had to go out and start marketing again. So I wasn't, and doing it as a one-man shop is never easy. So I had, I think it was in late 2008 when came to one of your seminars down in Houston, and ended up meeting my eventual business partner that is still my business partner today up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so we have been running a successful wholesaling business ever since late 2008 here in DFW. And we've continued to streamline our business. The biggest part of wholesaling that people know about is kind of your bread and butter houses, your 3-bed, 2-baths. And that's what all the investors with cash are really looking for. They're looking for something that's got value and it's got a lot of comparables and it's easy to justify the price. And that market is relatively competitive among other investors, other wholesalers.
Right.
And so what we've really kind of started to do is change over. We haven't stopped working that part of the market. We still work with other investors. We still market their properties. We have a big investor buyer list that we built over the years, and so we're going to continue to utilize that. The best way to do, the easiest way to do things, and you'll probably hear this in a wholesale real estate seminar, is build a big buyers list, find a property, send an email, and it's sold. Right. And of course, it's not always that easy, but sometimes it can be. So we do work with other investors that don't have as big a buyer list or don't have the relationships like we do. And so we'll work with them and they'll say, hey, can you help me sell this house? And then we'll go load them up, do some research on it, pull our own comps and make sure it really is what they're telling us it is. And then we'll go out and send out an email to our buyers. And if we bring up a buyer, then we'll arrange some kind of a split profits with the other wholesaler. There's a lot more details, of course, as far as things like getting agreements between the other investors and things like that. We can go into that later. So the newest part of our business now has been really the low end market, and so as you would have seen in the email that you had sent out, we're buying houses for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 right now. And they're small houses, of course. They're they're little 2-bed and some 3-bed houses that range in between 600 and about 1,100 square feet. And they're not necessarily the ideal investor grade type properties. In other words, our normal investors that are looking for the $100,000 3-bed, 2-baths aren't really interested in these. It's the landlords that like the little $500 rentals that they can buy for really cheap. And if you look at if you're buying a house for $10,000 or $15,000 and it rents for $500 a month, you're getting a really great return on investment. Right. And so, but that hasn't really been our primary buyer for these type of properties. It's actually been a lot of times people that are capable of doing repairs themselves, and they're actually gonna fix them up and live in them, and they have cash to buy them. So a lot of times they're Hispanics that are capable of doing all the repairs themselves, and so that's been our primary buyer. But we just know in certain areas of where we're doing our marketing and where we're picking up houses that we have a good grasp now of what people are really willing to pay as far as these cheaper houses. So the example that was in your email was one that we just did. Was it last week? Let's see. Today's the yeah. So we closed it last week, and we bought it for $8,000. And this one we really only contracted it. We contracted it, and then we did a double closing. So we didn't really buy it. Got under contract for $8,000 and went right back to old school. Bandit signs out on the street and cheap house for sale, cash only. And we were advertising it for $19,500. And we ended up getting a Hispanic buyer to come in and buy it all cash for $19,000. and that was actually our net. So we netted about $11,000
Right.
for that matter on that one. And the other part of this is where do we find leads like this? Well, this is
hold
also,
on. Before you get to the finding leads, I want to make sure I recap for everybody to understand here. So basically, what's working for you? I mean, I'm hearing feedback. Do you have a you don't have the
I've got two microphones on.
Okay.
Or two different ones. Hold on one second. Options.
Testing 1, 2, 3. I'm hearing. Okay. All right. Well, I still hear feedback a little bit, but it might. You don't have the Ustream show on, right? You only have the Skype. Is that correct?
You know what? I went into that page.
Okay, that's probably why.
That.
Yeah.
I didn't have it playing.
Oh, okay.
But let me see that one. That one. Like. Okay. Well.
Testing. Okay. Yeah. Did you close out that page?
I did.
Testing. I still can hear it.
Okay, let me. Yeah, I hear it on my side too. Maybe I can turn down my speakers a little bit. Would help.
Testing.
Okay. How's this?
Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. I still can hear myself, but it's better, so we'll just go with that. All right. So let me recap for everybody here. So what's working for you right now is these little really cheap houses that you can buy, somewhere between $6,000 to $9,000. And they're typically in a very low end neighborhood of a city, but not in the war zone, right? So
absolutely. The war zone, no matter what it is, if somebody's going to come and buy a house to live in it, and they have that much cash, $10,000 or $20,000, they're not going to want to live in an area where it's a war zone and there's lots of drugs and things like that.
Right. So it is one of the lowest income neighborhood in a city, but not in a war zone, and it's typically in a neighborhood where there's a decent amount of Hispanic people living there or is migrating to that area.
Yes.
Right. And so and all right. So you finding these properties from homeowners. You're buying them directly from homeowners, right? And then you're turning around, you're putting out signs, and you're selling it to homeowners as well. It's just that they are your fixer-upper contractor type of homeowners who's going to buy it, fix it up, and live in it themselves, or maybe buy it, fix it up, live in there, and then resell it later, whatever they do with that. But they're typically Hispanics, and they know how to do the repairs themselves, and they have mattress money that they're paying by cash for.
They absolutely have mattress money. They don't like the banks. They don't like paying interest.
Right. Okay. So let's start with how can somebody quickly find out where these neighborhoods are in their market? Do you have any idea for that?
Well, let me give you a quick rundown of what we're doing.
Okay.
So, first of all, we've gotten beyond the point of doing all the work ourselves, right? Obviously, I told you about my business partner, who's been my business partner since late 2008, early 2009,
right.
And so starting out, we did all the work ourselves. We're out there banging up bandit signs late at night. We're writing out our marketing. We're stamping and licking and mailing everything. And now that gotten to a point where we understand things, we're leveraging. So we're reaching out and we're working with other investors, such as people that we've met from our Real Estate Investor Association meetings, and people that want to learn more. And so we're working with them and kind of using them as our bird dogs and teaching them and saying, here, do this, and go out. And so one of the oldest strategies is go out and drive for dollars, drive neighborhoods and look for vacant houses. Okay. Right. And now, so you were asking, how do we find these lower end neighborhoods? I guess you could always go, you can go to your county tax rolls and just look at appraisal values and in certain areas and look for, when you look at the tax assessed values that are a lot lower, 20 and 30, and that's what these are. These are typically about $20,000 and $30,000 tax assessed values, but they're just properties that we can buy them so cheap because people just don't want anything to do with them, or just want out, or don't have any other way out. So, right. So what we've done is we've had our bird dog literally go drive these neighborhoods just up and down the street and write down addresses of houses that look vacant, and then he brings those addresses back to us, and we compile them and we actually send them over. We have a virtual assistant that works for us, and so we send those over to her, and she takes everything and goes and finds all the addresses, the mailing addresses on the county tax records for those property addresses, and then we just go out and send them all a postcard, saying that basically we want to buy their vacant house, or we notice that their house is vacant and we want to help them with it. And so, as far as where do you find this type of a house? I think any metropolitan, any kind of major metropolitan area is going to have your lower end and higher end properties. Right. I'm sure that there's an easy way to do that online, maybe like city-data, some websites where you can go just search zip codes and look at the median income is lower. Right. Would be one way. And so you're going to be looking at obviously the property values, and I think there's a lot of data that you can get online that will tell you where the lower income is. Right. Or you can another way you can do it too is if you have a real estate agent that can access the MOS, and if you just look for like the 50 of the cheapest homes that are listed on the MOS. Yeah. That would also give you a good idea on where these neighborhoods are, because they're typically all the cheapest ones on the MOS. If you don't have an agent or don't have access to the MOS, you can also do the same thing on Zillow.com or on Realtor.com, and just look for the 50 cheapest ones, and that should zoom you in pretty well. And when you're driving around, to work, farm work, places, and you see typically in the low income area, you see like bail bond type of businesses. Yeah. You see your pawn shops. Those kind of areas you'll be able to recognize pretty quickly. And so those are some of your areas. And if you want to get more sophisticated than this, and I like getting sophisticated, but there's a software out there that you can buy called MapPoint from Microsoft, or you can get like a free trial version even. And MapPoint will allow you to, because it has the census data built into the software, and the latest one I guess it's going to come out here pretty soon. But with that census data, you can also track like what John was talking about with the income bracket, Hispanic, percentage of Hispanics in a certain area. So you can do all kinds of stuff like that with MapPoint. And so that's for those of you who are techie and like to do this kind of stuff, that's pretty fun too. So okay, cool. So you have bird dogs out there driving these neighborhoods, right? Right. And they're looking for vacant houses as well as distressed properties. Is that correct? Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So so they find those vacant, they find those distressed, they turn that over to you. You have a virtual assistant research for the mailing address. You send out a letter or a postcard to them.
We'll send a postcard.
You send a postcard over to them. And what does the postcard say?
That's a good question. It's a template that we have for a postcard.
Is it printed or is it like handwriting font?
No, it's printed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We've got a couple of different options that we use for our marketing. Let's see. And we have kind of have some templates that we have for vacant. Let's see. I've got like an absentee owner postcard. I've got a free and clear postcard. Let's see. I don't see the vacant one that I use right off the top of my head, off the top of the list here. Free and clear, BNOD, absentee owner, which is another one. Most of these are going to be absentee owners.
Right.
Those are.
So, do you do anything beyond mailing out these postcards and getting them to call you? Do you actually track them down and try to call them at all?
No, we don't. Just because we're actually pulling about between 500 and 1,000 addresses at a time, and our time is better served by just having our virtual assistant look up all the mailing addresses, and then we can load those into like a mail merge and just generate 500 or 1,000 postcards, or go through a company like Click to Mail,
right,
or Sales Team Live or something like that, where they're gonna have all the copyright already in there, and then it's all you need to do is slap in a first name and an address,
right,
and they're gonna mail it for you. So, and then our phone rings, right, and so that's really the best usage of our time, is to just get as many mailers out there going as possible, and then we'll wait for people to call us. You never know if one guy's going to call and say, well, I want $30,000 for the house. And I said, well, gosh, you're thinking to yourself, I'd only sell that thing for $20,000. And so, just from a time basis, it's just our time is better served just sending those mailers out and looking for people to call. Now, the difference there is that we won't just mail them once. We'll mail them if they haven't called back. We'll put them back in the queue, and then we'll mail them again next month.
Got it.
And so I'm trying to think of what we're looking at. I think we're still looking at close to $1 a postcard with printing and postage in the card itself.
Right.
But so say we've got 1,000, we're sending out 1,000 postcards. We're talking about $1,000, but look at the results. How many houses? And I guess for some people, and especially when we were getting started, it's like, wow, I don't have $1,000 to go spend on marketing.
Right.
But if you, and this is kind of actually where we started with our bird dog, is we actually paid for the marketing, and then had him answer the calls. And so then when the first day after we mailed him, he was going crazy. He was trying to send us a text message and say, guys, the phone won't stop ringing. And he couldn't even, his phone wouldn't stop ringing long enough for him to send us a text message on his phone.
Right.
And, it just reinforces the importance of marketing in this business. It's absolutely essential. And yes, you can do things that are no cost, like Craigslist, and we absolutely use Craigslist. We have our virtual assistant post every one of our properties for sale, and we've gotten some buyers off of Craigslist as well. But those sellers of those houses, they're not going to be out on Craigslist looking for any kind of a We Buy Houses ad. Right. Some people that have contacted us from our mailer, from our postcard, have owned the house that inherited it 3 years ago and just have no idea what to do, and just sit there and pay taxes on it because they don't know what to do, and they don't take the time to go out and research, how do I sell this house? Or there's not many real estate agents that are working the the $10,000, $10 to $15,000 list price market, because 3% of that much money is not very much for a real estate agent to do a listing there. So a lot of times these people that receive our postcards, it's like a godsend to them. They're like, wow, I can't believe this. I've needed somebody to come by my house, and I got your postcard. And then we go look at the house, and we say, well, listen, this is what I can offer you. And then there's usually, as usual, a little bit of back and forth. But at that point, yeah, I would say, okay, you know what, I'll give you $8,000 for it. And depending on our research on the property, if it's in a good area where we actually have MLS comps, or we can even go out and search public records and see if people are creating seller finance notes in the area, which we've been able to do as well, and see that, gosh, I've seen some of these houses that we're buying in areas for $10,000 and $12,000. People are creating $45,000 seller notes.
Wow.
And of course they're probably not getting a huge down payment from those people. Maybe $3,000-$5,000, but at that point, when you're buying the house is so cheap, that you're recouping, a third of your money just on that down payment, and then you've got a big seller carryback note that you can sit there and cash flow for years, or for that matter, you can turn around and sell the note for a big discount, as long as your payer is good. So lots of options there. Right.
And another, since you're going to be focusing on a specific area like that, neighborhood like that, I had a friend that what he did, his company only focused in on one zip code here in Houston, like this one zip code.
Wow.
And so what they did was they dominated that zip code. They did mailing. They sent out bird dogs to knock on every single door. Like,
wow.
Yeah, they just said, you know what, we're going to focus here, and this is all we're going to do. All our business is in this one zip code. And so it's like, it's rare that anyone else gets to buy any house in that zip code. I mean, because they've
just got a complete lock on what houses are worth and what they can sell them for in that market.
Yeah, and they control that whole thing. And so, like, when they turn around and sell it, they can show an appraiser their HUD statements, right? And so, they able to get comps that are not even on the MLS and get it appraised for it that are not even on the MLS because they can show their HUD statements. And so, like, they dominated, and they kind of kept it really tight just within the company. And so that's depending on the neighborhood, of course, that's certainly a strategy that you can use as well to, like, really hone into that. All right, so now, all right, so you do the mailing, get the calls, and you mentioned you have a bird dog taking these calls, or
yeah. So the bird dog, this is a guy that I had met at a real estate investor meeting, and it was one I've had actually known him before, but this real estate investor meeting, they actually did a bus tour where we went around and actually did door knocking, and I was invited to be one of the coaches on this bus tour.
Right.
And so we walked around, did door knocking, did analysis, and one of the guys from that event had kind of latched on and said, hey, John, I think I'm going to be getting laid off from my job here in the next couple of months, and I'm really giving serious thought to doing this real estate thing full time and giving it a go. And I'd like to work with you guys. And just like he said, a couple months later, he was giving us a call and saying, "Well, it happened. So I'm getting a severance and going on unemployment now, but I'd really like to work with you guys." And so what we did with him is we moved a lot of the stuff that we didn't like to do ourselves, which was that door knocking. This is one of the things that he did, is he actually just went and picked areas and went door to door and said, hey, I'm looking. I think the line that we had learned for door knocking is, "Hi, I'm just wondering if you or anybody that you know in this area, or any of your friends at church or school, might be have a house to sell, or might be looking to sell their home." And so he got some good leads, but that's very, very shotgun approach, is just going to a neighborhood and going door to door.
Right.
And you're going to find things that you wouldn't find in any other way by doing that. Absolutely. Right. But I think what he learned after his, second 1,000 doors that he had knocked was, gosh, I'm spending a lot of time going door to door, knocking on houses, and, not getting that many leads for the amount of work that I'm putting in. And so what we did is we said, okay, we're going to stop the shotgun door knocking, and we're going to put you on a rifle line for this door knocking. And so what we did is, as you know, here in Texas, we have a foreclosure auction every month. The notification only comes out 21 days before that auction. It becomes public notice 21 days before it actually goes to auction. And so there's a service, and you can get that by going down to the courthouse, but there's a service here that collects that data and packages it up very nice in an Excel spreadsheet for us. And it comes with data like the mortgage balance and the original mortgage balance. And so we just go in there and sort, look at the areas that we want, and we could tell our bird dog and say, hey, here's what we want you to do. Go take this short list, all these houses that show a lot of equity, and go door knock those. And we'd actually bought a couple houses that way by just him going and door knocking and contacting and finding the actual owner, if it wasn't owner occupied, and saved them from going to foreclosure. We bought one by just taking over the payments on the mortgage and catching up his back payments before it went to foreclosure, so we didn't have to go get a loan or hard money or use all of our cash to buy the house before we went and did it. And this isn't necessarily these $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 houses. This is any range. We're really just looking for equity, because we bought a $250,000 house this way that was about to go to foreclosure in a neighborhood not far from where I live, and then we ended up taking it over and rehabbing the house, and we actually just closed on it last week and did pretty good, made about 50% on our money in about 3 months, and sold it to an FHA buyer. So lots of different ways that we're going to make money. But so this is how we got started with our bird dog, is having them go out and doing this door knocking. And then we said, well, while you're out here doing the door knocking, I want you to go and drive these streets and pay attention and look for vacant houses, right? And it's one of the oldest strategies. It's there's nothing new about driving for dollars. Is just looking for the houses that look abandoned, the tall grass, the weeds, the phone books sitting on the front porch, mail piling up, things stuffed in the door, and they're pretty obvious that they're vacant. And now sometimes we'll mail to some of those addresses, and we'll get an angry caller back and say, this house isn't vacant. Right. But they still have tall grass and weeds and phone books and everything else. It's just that they're hermits or don't ever walk outside or anything like that. So, but most of the telltale signs are going to be a vacant home. And when you get into these lower priced neighborhoods, you're going to get a much higher percentage of these vacants. Okay. And we eventually started finding the group of investors, kind of like you said, that you know of down in Houston, where they actually buy in these lower end neighborhoods and fix them up for rentals, because the cash flow potential is so huge when you're buying them so cheap, right? When you're looking at your traditional investor that wants to have the $70,000 to $100,000 3-bed 2-bath as a rental, you're usually looking at that 1% rental amount, right? And by that I mean if the house is worth $100,000, it'll typically rent for 1% of that. Right. And now I know that's not going to be true in California or other areas like that, where you've got $1 million house. Doesn't mean it's going to rent for $10,000 a month. Right. But in your more leveled out areas, I think that's a general rule that we could go by. And so instead of getting $100,000 house and getting $1,000 a month of rent, we can pay $15,000 for a house and get $500 a month in rent. So if I use the 1% rule there, it doesn't really apply if I'm getting $500 in rent. That would make me assume that the house is worth $50,000, but I only paid $15,000 for it. So so the numbers are really great if you've got the landlords that are willing to work in areas like that, where your tenants are not going to be as high quality. You're going to have more turnover, and you're going to have to worry about things potentially being stolen. But that's why we're not landlords. That's why we do the wholesaling mainly.
Right. So, all right. So you find these properties, you market to them. Your bird dog answers the calls. Put the deals together, and then how do you sell these properties? You mentioned putting out bandit signs. Who put out the bandit signs, and where you put out the signs?
We have hired a guy. We've actually gone through a lot. That's one of the hardest things that we've ever had to find, was somebody reliable to actually go out and put out bandit signs for us. Whether or not they're doing bandit signs to find buyers or to find sellers. Putting out bandit signs to find buyers is typically a little easier, because you can just basically surround an area where the house is, and we'll tell them what to write on the sign. So these are handwritten, cheap house, cash only, $15,000, and a phone number. And for those, we'll take the calls. And eventually, I'm thinking that we may outsource that to another virtual assistant. And train them to understand it. The big thing is when we're selling a house, you need to have all the details about the house that you're selling, the neighborhood, and a virtual assistant isn't necessarily going to have all that information at hand.
Right.
But eventually, that's what we're going to be looking to do, is to outsource that part of it as well, so we can focus on finding more houses.
Right.
And so.
And then you also post them on Craigslist and email that to your email list as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll always send them to the email list just because it's easy, right? It doesn't take anything. I've got a website that my virtual assistant posts all the properties to, and then she loads them up. She goes into my email program and sends out a test message. I look at it, make sure everything looks okay. And if it does, I say, okay, go ahead and send it to the entire list. For the lower price properties, we don't get a ton of hits from our buyers list, even though we've got 2,000 people we're emailing to just locally. We don't necessarily get a lot of hits, because a lot of the investors aren't looking for that type of a property. They're looking for the the standard $100,000 three bed 2 bath. Not this, little 2-bed 1 bath, 600 to 800 square foot house. They don't know what to do with that. They don't see any value there, right? However, there are some people on the buyers list that say, oh, hey, that's my area. That's the perfect type of house. I like to buy houses in the teens to low 20s. And they may not be going out on Craigslist to find houses like that. And if it's delivered right to their inbox, it makes it easy for them. So we'll do email. My virtual assistant will go out and post on Craigslist and repost daily. So it's always at the top, which is a new feature of Craigslist, I've realized, which is nice. And bandit signs, that's primarily the 3 main ways that we're going to market these properties. And most of our buyers are coming off of those bandit signs.
Gotcha. Okay. And all right. So how much do you pay to your bird dog that's helping you? Do you have more than one? Are there typically more than one bird dog?
We have a bird dog that works one county, the county for Fort Worth, and then we have another bird dog that works the county for the Dallas side.
Gotcha. Okay. Good idea.
And so they kind of stay separate. And our split with them, it's kind of changed along the way, just depending on how much work they actually do. So, at the beginning, we might, if they're just doing nothing but going out and bringing us a lead, we may pay them 10% of the deal. But we're actually up to a point where we're splitting the deal 50-50 with our bird dog.
Oh, cool.
And it's mainly because they're doing the majority of the work. They're going out, they're taking the phone call, they're inspecting the property, they're taking the pictures, they're negotiating the contract, they're getting the contract signed, collecting earnest money, or taking earnest money down to the title company, and then we'll have him go out and put the bandit signs out to sell it, and then we'll put our phone number on it because he's still taking all the calls from the sellers, and so we'll handle the buyer side, and of course then go to our email list into Craigslist, and and the thing is he may still bring us a buyer. He may contract it and bring the buyer, which has actually already happened, and we'll still split 50-50
Gotcha.
at that point. So it works out. It works out on both sides, depending. But
right.
For the guy that we have working with us on the Dallas side, he's not as experienced. He's been taking the phone calls, but we haven't been getting as much results from him. Gotcha. So we might have to tone back and send those calls to our VA instead, and then cut him in on a smaller percentage because we're just seeing our marketing dollars going away at that point because he's not producing as much. He's not bringing us contracts. He's not he's not sending us leads as much. So it kind of depends on how much experience that bird dog has and how motivated they are as far as moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us what's working right now in your business. And so I want to take a step back now, and because I always like to study what helps somebody get off the ground when at the beginning of their business. In this case, at the beginning of your real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to hear from your story as to how your first deal came about. Because the first deal is always the scariest deal. I remember how scary it was for me as well. And so, I want to hear what was going on. Not so much the detail of the deals itself, and if we have enough time, we can get into the details. But like, what was going on around you? What what was going on in your head? What doubts did you have? What were you studying? What were you reading? Just like basic. I call them, the stars that line up for you. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to identify what are all those stars that got aligned that allow you to do your first deal.
Okay. I started out as kind of a seminar geek, I guess you could say. I'd done a lot of training, a lot of learning,
right,
and I hadn't done any doing. And eventually, I started listening to the right people. I started off as a Ron LeGrand student back in the early 2000s, and went to his Ugly House, Pretty House boot camp.
Got it.
And it was 3 days, and it was basically just about going out and finding junkers and doing it. But it just, for every person, it just wasn't enough. I was out there making offers on MLS listed properties, and it just wasn't, that's just not the best way to go. That if you're looking to buy cheap real estate, and yeah, you can buy them from bank owned, but back in the early 2000s, that was different. It wasn't, the economy was definitely different then. So, started, learning from other people, the people that work with Ron LeGrand, like Richard Roop is a marketing guy, and they would continually talk about, there's only so much tech that you can learn, mm-hmm. Or that you even really need before you just need to go out there and do something. And so in 2007, when I had decided I wanted to go into the short sale side, that's kind of what I was learning at the time. Dwan, is that her name?
Dwan
she's a Dwan. I can't remember the rest of her name. Dwan Bent Tyford, I think, something like that.
Uh-huh. Right.
And so she's kind of like the queen of short sales, and I went to one of her little boot camps, and it just got me that little bit of information that I finished. Actually, when I went to that boot camp, I was already doing some short sales because I figured, I'm never going to get any leads unless I start marketing. whether or not it's on Craigslist or sending letters. But I had learned about the yellow letter, which again is just a. And I would get up every morning and I would look at the lists that came from the post bankruptcy leads in my area, and I would literally handwrite every morning 10 to 15 letters. Just, hi, my name is John, my wife Lisa and I are interested in buying your house at 123 Main Street. Please give me a call at this number. Folded it, licked it, stamped it, and mailed it. So I'd mail out 10 to 15 letters every day, just depending on how many new leads came in, because that's how they were coming off your list. And the phone started to ring. The response rate on that list was amazing. Actually, I want to say a better than 25% response rate. And so I was amazed by the response I was getting from people. And I said, okay, well, I knew the tech, if you will, of short sales. And so I was out there, I was negotiating, and not to include my first real deal was actually a joint venture in Montana, of all places, on land that I partnered with my mother-in-law. But that's kind of not really my own first deal. Right. My own first deal was the short sale. I finally got that first short sale approved. It's a house. It's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath, Fort Worth, and I still own it today. Well, I sold it on a note, but
gotcha.
I still have it, and put in the offer, and I offered like $30,000, and the house was tax assessed at around 65, and probably about the fair market value for it. And so I offered 30, and the bank came back and said no, it's not enough, and I raised my offer by like $6,000. So I came back and at 37, and that was when my eyes were opened, and the bank accepted $37,000 for this $65,000-$70,000 house. Right? Cool. That was when you first start learning about short sales and understanding why would a bank accept less than what's owed, and the guy owed like $65,000 on it.
Oh wow! Okay.
Okay, so they accepted $37,000 for this house that was where 65 was owed, and I had kind of everything in line, and I had been to an event recently where I got hooked up with a new hard money lender, and that's how I actually bought the house. Originally, my plan was to wholesale the house, but after I added that extra $6,000 offer in there, that's basically the difference between my wholesale buy price and my wholesale sell price. Right? So I would have liked to have sold that house wholesale at 37, but instead I bought it at 37. So at that point I realized, well, it looks like I paid a little bit too much to be able to wholesale, and I said, well, you know what, that's okay. I'm going to buy it. I got a hard money loan, 4 points, 18%, 6-month term. Everything went through, no problem. That it was a no credit check, kind of a hard money lender. Right. And actually, I think Tim, I talked to you about this. We had interviewed a guy that was the owner of that hard money loan lending company out of Arizona.
Oh, gotcha.
He ended up going out of business later. Right. But so, anyways, so that was the company. They were out of Arizona. They loaned the money. It was like $600 a month, interest only payments, and I'm like, okay, no problem. And I took that house down and I rehabbed it. I hired some contractors and I got the foundation fixed and got it all painted and replaced all the sinks and the countertops and everything like that. And I tried to sell it on the open market, and I had it flat fee listed on MLS. I was asking around $75,000 for it. I had a lot of interest. I was holding open houses and everything. It was just that neighborhood that it was in just wouldn't quite accept that $75,000 asking price. And I had about $55,000 into it at that time, I think, with my loan fees and my rehab and everything. And I ended up turning it into a rental. I was the accidental landlord, I guess you could call it. So And then after a couple of years of renting that property and dealing with a bad tenant, I started to learn more, and I learned about seller financing and how to create notes. And I decided that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to turn around and sell this thing. So I'm getting away from my original buy, but that was the first one.
That's good. And so was your wife helping you at that time as well?
Yeah, definitely.
You
My
had
wife
somebody to do it with.
has always supported me as far as my interest in real estate investing. So she had come, and she'd come by, and she definitely helped a lot as far as getting the place ready for sale and doing the open houses and getting the house, smelling nice and pretty for your open houses and all those things that, you hear people tell you to do for open houses and things like that.
That's cool. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to be wrapping up the show here. And so before we go, what's message, what's the last, message or lesson that you'd like to share with everybody, especially the people that are either starting out or the people that are sort of having trouble making money in the real estate business in this market? What do you want to share with them?
So a couple of the biggest learning experiences for me are, one is getting out there and just doing it. You don't need to go to another seminar or read another book as long as you've had some education already. You don't need to go. You don't need to get that new self-study home study course or the new the new thing that's out there to be able to get that first deal, right? You can only learn so much before you need to go out and apply what you've learned before you forget what you learned. And so it's just go out there and just do it. Apply something that you've learned. And so the next point would be, as far as what you're learning is, and I said this already, is marketing is the absolute key to our business. Being a wholesaler, you're a problem solver, right? And so you need to get out there and figure out how to solve people's problems, these houses that they need to sell, but may not even realize it. And the only way that you're going to find those people is through marketing. And I think driving for dollars, sending postcards to people at vacant houses by looking up their mailing addresses is a very inexpensive way to go start, but you're actually doing some actual marketing, and you're going to get phone calls, and you're going to be scared when you get that first phone call, and you're going to say, oh, gosh, I don't know what to say, and eventually it just comes out, and you start remembering all those things that you've learned, and eventually it'll turn into your first deal, and then you kind of sit back and be like, okay, you know what, that wasn't so bad, but I'm not sending out postcards anymore, so my phone's not ringing anymore, and you realize, okay, I got to keep marketing, I got to keep doing it. So those are my main 2 points: is get out there and do something, apply what you've learned, and don't stop marketing.
Right, exactly. And yeah, that's just how things work. Like once you get into action, other things will start to, things start to unravel itself, and then opportunities start to come to you. And so you need to get into action, get that momentum kick in. And so awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jon. That was a great interview show with you today. And I enjoyed all the things you shared with us today, so I really appreciate that. And so,
all right, well, thanks, Tim. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And all right, thanks everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.